Great. All right, and so we are live. Welcome, everyone. This is Sarah Hawkins of True North Business Management, and welcome to Ideas to Done, conversations with some of my favorite people about getting things done in business. And today I'm going to be talking with Rachele Pojednic, Dr. Rachele Pojednic, who is quite literally doing all the things. Rachele is an assistant professor of nutrition at Simmons College. She is a spin instructor at Flywheel. She is the ambassador for Specialized Women. She is doing all kinds of other things in academia with exercise and nutrition. And we're going to talk about those things as well as this new initiative that she just kicked off today. And mostly what I'm interested in is, of course, we want to talk about this forum, Strong Process Forum, but I'm also interested in how do you, on top of everything else you have going on, how do you then add yet another thing? So I'm going to hand it over to Rachele. Tell us what this Strong Process is. Tell us what else it is you have going on. I'm going to stop this share so we can get a better image of everybody. And so let us know what's going on.
Hi. Well, thanks so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here with you. Sarah and I have actually been working together for quite some time. So it was really exciting to get to work together on this project, this Strong Process Forum. Actually, Sarah, I will give you all the credit for getting my button gear to get it around. Sarah started this amazing mastermind meeting several months ago and was like, Rachele, you've got this thing you've been, blabbing on about for so long. It's time to get it into gear. So I credit Sarah for actually hitting the start button on this.
I said it a little more nicely. It was a little more nicely. But yeah, that was the gist of the question.
Yeah. So, I needed it. So it was good. So the Strong Process Forum was an idea that I've had for years. I work in academia in nutrition, and then prior to being in nutrition, all of my academic work was in exercise and physical activity. And so I blend the two in my current work, where I'm actually doing research now looking at different interventions of exercise and nutrition on certain diseases, like type 2 diabetes is the disease that I'm focusing on right now. And I also, the other half of my life is in fitness and wellness. And so I was really struck over and over and over again by how disconnected these two worlds are, where we've got all of these people doing this super high level, amazing research in, the ivory towers here in Boston. And then you have all of the people in fitness and wellness really doing the best that they can to interpret this information that comes out in dribbles and drabbles in, like science speak, which is so boring and nuanced, and trying to make sense of it and helping their clients and some points patients. And there's just this really profound disconnect between the two worlds. So, literally both worlds marching in the same line, but never, ever, ever speaking to one another. And so this idea of science communication started to come to the forefront in a lot of the work that I was doing, mostly because we got to this point sort of globally where, scientists are being distrusted because they're saying things that, the sort of lay population is confused about. So for example, there was this moment maybe 2-3 years ago where Time magazine puts this cover on the front of their cover that says butter is back. And there's this big scoop of butter on the front, and everybody's like, oh my God, we got to put bacon on everything. It's totally healthy now. We can do it. And everybody was like, wait, that's not what the research actually said. What we meant was this and that. And the problem is scientists speak in nuanced, very level, non-committal kind of terms. And the regular people can't handle that. It's just just tell me what to do. I just want to know what's the right thing to do. And so in the sort of like that environment, I started to think, like, man, what we really need is these two worlds to, rather than operate in their silos, started to create a little Venn diagram here, right? Where like we've got some overlap in the middle where people actually are interpreting the pretty heavy duty science and giving it to people that are actually working with real humans. And so that's where Strong Process started to be born, is starting to think about how can we communicate the science specifically of wellness. So thinking nutrition, exercise, sleep, stress, and really make it applicable to the humans that need this information. And so what I really wanted to do was create this conference, this one day. It's sort of this vision that I've had in my head, is that it would be this one day conference, and I've sort of tagged it Wellness Explained. And so basically we've got 3 panels of experts that are going to come in, and they're moderated, these panels, by fitness sort of pioneers, you know, celebrities, people that are actually doing this work big time in mostly the city of Boston. And the idea here is to really connect the dots so that we get these like people have never heard of scientists, if I were to tell them to you, but they've got this tremendous amount of knowledge. And then how do we sort of funnel it to the real people? And so that's what Strong Process is. It's going to be one day in the spring of 2018 where we've got 3 panels of experts that come from all over speaking about 3 specific topics. So the 3 specific topics are movement, eating, and rest. And so within those topics, we have very specific questions that we are asking of these panelists. So for the Eat panel, and I see that Julie is actually popped on here. Hey, Julie, is actually one of our moderators. And Julie is going to be moderating the Eat panel. And on the Eat panel, we're going to have the question, should you eat organic or conventional food for your health and for the health of the environment? And so on this panel, we're going to have a scientist that can explain. Oh, that's my Alexa. She's in the background trying to explain to me what's going on here. So thank you, Alexa. So we'll have a scientist that will be able to explain the difference between what does that actually mean? What does organic mean? And what does conventional actually mean? Because I think that people don't really even know the difference because all we are bombarded with are these labels. And then we've got a farmer coming, and this farmer uses both organic and conventional methods on their crops. And the idea is, why would you use organic on some and not all of them? And there are some really good and specific reasons as to why you would use one versus the other. And then lastly, we're going to have a dietitian on this panel that can really weed into why we might choose one or the other over, you know, for your health. And so the goal here, so I use the Eat panel because it's just kind of a really good example. The goal here is not necessarily to tell you you should eat organic or you should eat conventional, but to give you enough knowledge and tools so that when you leave that evening after this conference, you have a really good reason as to why you're choosing one or the other. I don't have a horse in this race. I don't own an organic farm. I don't even do my research on this stuff, but I want real people to have an amazing understanding of, when I go to the grocery store, it's worth it for me to spend the $7.99 on Driscoll strawberries, or is it okay that I spend $3.99 and buy the conventional that's right next to it? So that's the goal with Strong Process, is to really have a good conversation with the experts that know their stuff, moderated by the wellness gurus in the area, given to the real people. So now we're connecting all of the dots.
Very, very cool. And so this comes along in the middle of everything else that you're already doing. So it's not like you suddenly found a bunch of space in your life in which you had like nothing better to do and you thought, oh, let's put this on. This comes on top of all of the stuff I mentioned and more that I didn't mention because either I don't know what else you have going on, or it just like the list goes on and on. So, and you know, people, this is true. Like Rachel is like in all the things kind of person. And so the idea is to done. The theme of of this is, how does a person get from their idea to the done? Now, we're not done yet, so we can't really talk about a thing in retrospect. But to the where you are now, like, how are you at the moment? How did you get to this place? Because we should mention too, very exciting, that today is like the launch. You like unveiled the website, the social media stuff is up, like everything is out there. So like we are in this place of excitement, which like a lot had to happen before then. So what did you do in order to get to this place?
Yeah, so I think the thing is that when something like this launches, people on the other end of it tend to think that it was a very sort of methodical and, organized kind of process on the back end. And well, I mean, this is why I have you, Sarah, is because it was definitely not before I but so I think it started with like an idea that was just this like nebulous thing. Like I see this need in the space that I live in. And I started to talk to you about it. And basically it started out with a gigantic brain dump onto a piece of paper over coffee we were just literally writing down the ideas that were spewing out of my mouth and trying to organize them in a way that made sense. And so that's really where it started. Mm-hmm. And then from there, it was kind of like, oh shoot, this is a huge project and I need some help. And I think it's probably coming across of all the things that I do that I'm very, I'll use the word ambitious. Like I have a ton of projects that I love to be involved in. And this one I knew was going to be a really big deal and that I could not do it alone, which for me was like terrifying because I not only have all these projects going, but I really like to be in very specific control of all of it. And so for me, I knew that this project was going to be huge and then I needed a team of people to help me to do it. And so Sarah, you were the first member of the team on project management, and you really got all of the thoughts in my head put together in an organized fashion where it was now I could take action on each one of these things. We were creating lists of, okay, this is where, this type of work needs to be done. This is where this type of work needs to be done. I had all of a sudden my first foray into project management software. So I used Trello as my project management software. And even just sitting there, I'm, not only am I a total control freak, but I also think in straight lines and spreadsheets. So being able to take all of my thoughts and put them onto cards on this particular website where I could look and see, okay, these are the tasks that need to be done. And then the next part, which was the hardest part, was gathering an army of an army of wonderful people to help me do this. Because it was just a job that was well beyond one person. And so I think this is actually where I started to unravel a little bit because I didn't know how to delegate to other people.
Can I interject? Am I allowed to? What? Me and Daisy are curious.
Hi, Daisy.
She's such a weirdo. So you mentioned that you are very type A and you like things in lines and spreadsheets. And I know that we've talked about this before. I think Sarah and I have even talked about it. What would you recommend for someone that is, or do you know what to do if you are the opposite? So like for me, I have big ideas and I'm not scared to like launch things or take risks, probably because I don't really write anything down but like the thought of a spreadsheet, I've had ex-husbands make them for me, my current fiance, and they scare me to death. It's so unnatural. So is it something I should fight, or like should I fight and try to be more organized, or is there something that exists for somebody that doesn't think in such straight lines?
So I think Sarah can probably answer that from the tools perspective, but I think for just generally, I would say find the system that helps you best organize your brain. So for me, I will be having a day and I will be sitting back and I have 9,000 things to do and just starting to like sit there and sweat and get anxiety over like all these things that I'm thinking about. But if I sit down and make a list, instantly my anxiety goes away because I'm like, okay, I've got this. I can prioritize during the day. But I know that that's not how everybody works. So I've got this sister that I love desperately who literally we are like two different sides of the same brain. We have all the same, like passions and ideals. And she's like a super creative. And I literally got the complete other side of the genetic lottery is I think about things very strategically. And so I think, Julie, to answer your question, it doesn't have to be spreadsheets and lists. I think it just needs to be, you got to poke around until you find the tool that works best for your brain. And, so for example, my sister Leah will draw like diagrams where she's like, she can see, and I look at them and I'm like, this just looks like a big mess of arrows and lines. But to her,
I love arrows.
Yeah, totally. To her, it makes absolute perfect sense because that's the way her creative brain sees things. And so I think I think that's probably really important lesson number one for organizing this particular project was figuring out what the tool was. Because I tried on a couple of different tools specific to this. Sarah threw out a bunch to me and she was like, you could try this or you could try this and you could try this. And I was like, Sarah, can't you just tell me what the right one is? Tell me the best one for this project. And she was like, you got to go in and you got to mess around with them because one of them is going to start to make sense to you and the other ones are going to feel really overwhelming. And so I tried probably 2 or 3, 4 on, and this was the one that I just kept coming back to. And I'm like, this is easy for me. I can delegate. I can make, these lists that make sense in my head. I can share it really easily. I understand the tools. I already have an understanding of what's, the sort of background tools that integrate into it. So I think it's not like a specific answer, but I think the thing is like you got to poke around and try different things on until you find the thing that fits your brain.
It's just so fascinating because it's I'm like now my brain is lost again. I am recovering from pneumonia. So
cut you slack. We'll cut you slack on that one.
Like the first day not on medication. Just how people work so differently. And,
yeah. So I've got a good story about that. So it had to do with this delegation and actually using this tool. Very first sort of project. So I put this team together and I got really lucky. I have all these like amazing nutrition and exercise students that were so thrilled to learn about this project. They all also love internships and volunteering. So they were psyched to be a part of it. So I have this group of, 10, 15 people that are just super jazzed about helping out. And they're like, we'll do anything you want. We're so excited. Let's do it. And so I get my lists together on my, my management system, and I send out a note to everybody and I'm like, this task needs to be done. And it was like crickets. Like everybody was like, who's doing it? Like they're sitting in the background and a couple of them, pop into my office during the day and they're so you sent that thing out? Did somebody pick that up? What should we be doing? And it was like quite clear to me that I was like, here, this little team, you have been delegated this little project, go. And if somebody did that to me, I'd be like, great, I'm on it. Like I got this. Just because that's the type of person I am. Like somebody gives me a task, I do it. This group, they were waiting very specifically for me to say, okay, so-and-so, you do this, so and so, you do this. And not because they're not capable or creative or enthusiastic or exciting. They just needed very specific direction from me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that was a lesson to me as well, as I need to present, when I need something done, I need to present it in, number one, a very clear way, but also know who my people are so that I can present it to them in a way that makes sense and that they understand and can run with. Because I don't want to micromanage them. I just want them to do it.
I'm just going to jump in on that delegation piece because that's such a great learning, and also the idea that the reason nobody stepped up wasn't because nobody's capable.
Exactly.
But also, if you had done this in 3 months, you may find that somebody would step up. It's like the idea that like this is a new project and this is a new team, and not only are people getting used to working with you, they're used to getting used to working with each other. And so, there's that early formation of a team where people aren't sure like who's in charge and who's the leader. Is it okay for me to step up? Is it going to be like I'm stepping on people? And so there's just that negotiation that happens internally in teams that it was just really interesting to watch that unfold, because I know when you said, I'm just going to like put it out there, I'm like, you should tell. And then we just, let's just see what happens. And it was too early to just put something out there. I'm sure if you do this in like a couple of months, and once everyone gets used to where they fit in the structure of things, they'll jump right in.
Yeah. So that actually happened then the second time around. Is we had another task that needed to be done. I'm meeting with these sort of 3 groups together that are putting my panels together. And so we're sitting there in one big group and we're brainstorming, who do we want the speakers to be? How do we get in touch with them? And now we're sitting in a room together and somebody says, so who's going to do what? And I was like, that is an outstanding question. I was like, what I need is for one person to sort of take responsibility for each of these panels and be the point person for the others. And I had 3 hands up right away that were like, I want to do this. This is the task that I signed up for. I'm really excited about it. And so for me, it was also a learning curve of how do I manage a team of people? Because I'm so used to sort of being directive, where I'm a professor. I give an assignment, you do it. You don't do it, you don't get credit. And so for me, figuring out how to delegate and manage a team was also not only them learning how to respond to me, but me learning how to respond to and feed them the information that they want, which has been an ongoing project.
Yes, I totally understand that. As you know, I manage my studios and my managers. And I often have to explain to my instructors, if I text you one word, it's not because I'm angry. If I text you a one-word answer without an emoji, it's not because I'm That was an entire group conversation. I was like, I'm probably on the highway. Texting. But delegating and figuring out how to delegate is very challenging. What about going back to why you decided to do this project, the summit? Because I'm in this field too, both the fields. I think that you just like really hit the nail. What's the saying? Hit the nail on the
head. Hit the nail on the head.
That thing. Is that there is such a disconnect between academia and fitness community.
Yeah, I call them fitness wellness.
The fitness wellness. Yeah. Fitness wellness. It's such a different one. I mean, one being that when you're out of academia, you really lose so much access to research and to literature. That was my biggest thing when I left my master's program. I didn't have the logins anymore. I couldn't get it, not even just not being able to, that science literature is sometimes boring. It had nothing to do with that. It was that I couldn't get it.
Yeah.
So I think that that's something that's great about this summit you're doing, is that you are giving people an opportunity to hear from people that do have access to that, and then also to talk about these topics in a way like that everyone can understand. But in the fitness community, what they do, fitness wellness, what most of them do have is social media skills, which in academia is definitely not taught, not encouraged.
No, it's certainly not encouraged.
At all, at all. And it's its own competition. I mean, obviously with research and grants, but no one's worrying about having 10,000 followers.
Yeah,
It's not something, and it's not product driven. It's results driven, like research driven. So like they're very different, still run by money, but both. But I think that's, just that I know that the disconnect is there. And when you come from academia and you are in fitness and wellness like you are, you really are caught in this place where you don't want to say too much. You don't want to overstep and say, insult a colleague, that you teach with.
Right.
Even though you know the truth. So it's like, I just think this is so great that you're doing this.
Thank you. I mean, I think that this is, again, it's just sort of a timely moment where we're in this era of fake news. And it's funny, I talk to people all the time, and when I give lectures, I'm like, you guys in, politics think that fake news is like a new thing. Like nutrition is ground zero for fake news. And I think that that's where we get so much confusion. And I think it's why my students were so excited about working on this project, is because they are also in both of those worlds. So for us, social media and, the sort of wired world is second, like we're like a second removed, like a second generation removed from that, because it became part of our life when we were adults. For them, it's literally integrated. They literally think a thought and it's on their phone before they even have a chance to filter. And so for them, they were really excited about this project too. And, thinking about this idea of delegating tasks, is pretty much every single one of them wanted to be involved in social media and marketing, because it's the language that they speak. And so for me, it was very funny when we were having early conversations with that team. And, they're being educated. So most of the students are going to be dietitians, and they're being educated on the science behind, food. And even they're seeing it and they're getting frustrated, and they're like, oh my God, why are all these headlines saying this? It's not true. And then also realizing that, oh my God, I was falling for it, and I'm going to be a dietitian, and I need to be able to figure out what the differences are here. And so back to the delegating of the social media marketing, it was funny because I'm sitting with them, and they get it. They get the idea. Like, we want to connect these two worlds. And Instagram was one of the social media handles that was, they were just like so excited about it. And I'm sitting in the back being like, posting pictures, editing them. I do it because, to your point, Julie, like, I'm trying to, work both angles and figure out how to, as an individual, cross this line. But it was so funny. They were like, well, what do you want to do? And I'm like, don't know.
I mean, I literally, when I think about taking a photo of my food, I get a feeling like I'm going to throw up. Like, I can't do it. At this point, I can't do it. I'm going to outsource that. But that's because in me, like, it doesn't give me any joy. It doesn't. I'm like, I don't want to take a picture. I don't want to learn how to take pictures of food. I didn't go to school for it, and I don't have time to invest in it. Maybe in 10 years, I'll buy a camera and I'll learn how to do it. But
we're not. I mean, so I think that word that you say, that's the right word, is outsource.
Yes.
So for projects, like, I enjoy taking pictures of my dogs and, of things that I do day to day. But targeting them to this specific project, for me, going back to sitting with that team, was they were asking me, what do you want on this? And I actually was deferring to them, and I was saying, guys,
right,
what people are going to be excited about and what people are going to be listening to. And well, let's plug it. Let's plug the Instagram page. It's super cool. Like, so if you go to Strong Process on Instagram, it's really neat. They came up with this really creative way to sort of mosaic pictures together. They've got this whole plan of how to schedule the pictures in. They've got this gigantic library of pictures that they've been collecting. And I gave them the direction of it. But to your point, Julie, I outsourced it to people that were excited about it, that knew what they were doing, and were having, investing themselves into making sure that it was really good. Mm-hmm. Where if I were to do it for me, it would be like very forced, number one. And number two, it would be something that would be driving me bananas. Item number 7,462 on my list that I would probably also be avoiding because I don't feel comfortable doing that kind of work. Mm-hmm. So I think that's I think it's an important lesson that I learned in this whole process early on was it was really hard for me to delegate because I am a total control freak, but also it was really important for me to delegate because there were people out there that were really excited and willing to do these jobs that I am not good at, not excited about, and they were both of those things. So yeah, I think it's really important to recognize that, not only in yourself, but also find the right people. And I think that's probably a more challenging, I had a really awesome and gigantic pool of people that were excited to work with me. So I think for people that don't have that asset, it's probably a lot more challenging and to be completely.
I know it definitely is. Like I try to find people and it's tough because I need to have somebody that is not only great at social media, but also someone that understands where I'm coming from. I already have a social media strategy that was done for me a while ago, but somebody that just gets it, that's really hard. But anyways, another question for you.
Ready.
I'm here. Why don't you take us through a day in the life of you? Since you wear so many hats.
Yeah.
It's kind of bananas and every day is totally different. So I'll give you like a long day for me yesterday was a really long day. So I got up super early, taught my spinning class, which is super fun and highly recommended. If somebody needs just something that keeps them on schedule exercising and also gets them paid for it, teaching spinning is a really good idea. And then I went to work throughout the day. I'm doing some work with the American Council on Exercise, so I did a ton of work for them in the morning. I had a couple of classes that I taught in the day, and then in the afternoon was really dedicated to answering 9,000 emails, which is also, if somebody can figure out, I know that this was mentioned actually on a previous Ideas to Done, but how to manage your email, that for me is a super challenge. Like I will get sucked. Yeah, like hours. I will get sucked into email. Like I've got 10,000 of them. Everybody wants an answer right now. So that takes up a huge part of my day. And then yesterday evening was really fun. I actually got to go do an event for Specialized at a bike shop here in town. But then I got home at like 8:30. And so what I really don't want that to sound like is that I'm glorifying 6:30 to 8:30 because I would also love to figure out how to not have that as part of my life.
Well, I'm sure listeners are going to want to know something else. Did you eat anything that day?
Oh yeah, I do.
What did you eat?
Mm-hmm. I eat a lot. I'm actually one of those people that once I start to get hungry, my brain starts to turn to, it fries and I get really hangry really quickly. And so I eat all day, every day. So I get up, I have breakfast. I'll usually make another smoothie like midway through the day. I will eat a lunch, usually like a baked salad, and then I have snacks in the afternoon, and then I eat dinner. And I have, for the record, I do drink wine pretty much every night with dinner. So, I've got a pretty, modest, middle of the road kind of eating pattern. It's healthy. I really pay attention to it, but I'm not insane about it, I think that's one thing too that I really want people to come away with from Strong Process is I want people at the end of that day to be like, okay, I know that there are lanes that I should be sort of operating in. And as long as I stay in those lanes most of the time, I'm doing it right. Because what happens is people get nuts about, I need to be doing this particular exercise or I need to be doing this particular diet. And then something else comes out of thin air and they're like, oh my God, I've been doing everything wrong. And I've been speaking at some of conferences, sort of around the country the past couple of years. And one thing that was sort of striking me over and over again is that people were leaving those conferences feeling like they weren't doing things right. Mm. And that was instilling in them and then like an additional stress. In addition to going in and being like, oh my God, I need to know all this stuff, they were leaving that day being like, oh my God, I'm doing everything wrong. And so people kind of ask me all the time, sort of a similar question to you just asked, really, like, why are you so like calm and easy about food in particular? Like you don't subscribe to any crazy diets. You eat, I go to Flour on the weekends and I try her amazing cinnamon bun. It's stupid good. Yeah.
That's Flour Bakery run by Joanne Chang for those people who aren't here from Boston.
You get Joanne Chang.
Yeah. Joanne Chang, yeah.
She's incredible. She's one of my heroes. Anyways, here's another reason why she's one of my heroes. It's hysterical. She runs this gorgeous bakery, several of them in the city, and there's a gigantic sign on the front when you walk in. It's a little bit snarky, but I kind of love it, which is like, this is not a gluten-free facility. It's a bakery. Which anyways, so I don't get, and people are always asking me like, why, like, aren't you like freaking out about carbs or like gluten? Or like, are you so upset? Like, should you be putting more fat in your diet? And I'm like, and this is what I'm talking about when I say I do this research all day, every day. Like, eating healthy is a pretty simple process. And the headlines would have you think that it's insanely intensive. And it's just not. Like, it's just really not. And so if you can figure out sort of where those lanes are, and by the end of the day of Strong Process, figure out where you kind of fit in those lanes. I talk about all the time when I do lectures, a spectrum of healthy eating. And the spectrum includes vegan on one side and paleo keto on the other. And you can be on that spectrum. You just got to find the best thing that works for you. And I think that that's kind of something that I live, to your earlier question, Julia, I kind of live my ethos kind of throughout becoming an adult professional is finding the thing that works for you is really important. And it's going to be totally different than the things that work for other people. So like for me, it's straight lines, spreadsheets, and lists. And I don't get too stressed out about, I eat pretty healthy. I don't get nuts about it. For other people, it really works for them to have a MyFitnessPal and track every single thing that they eat, not because they're obsessed about whatever, but because it just keeps them honest. And they're like, I will nibble and I'll munch and I don't want to gain weight and I don't want to eat this or that. And it will just help me stay on top of things. And I'm like, that's great. Like, if that's the thing that works for you, awesome. Yeah. And so I think that's the thing, both the Strong Process and as I'm discovering with this whole process of creating Strong Process, so both the message of the conference and then the creation of this is finding the thing that works for you inside of the chaos of creating an event like this is really, really, really important. And that it's not, you guys have probably seen that drawing where it's like a meme where it's like starting point, ending point. There's like this gorgeous straight line and like, and they're like reality. And it's like this, squiggly line that kind of goes all over the place. That's been my experience with this. I've sought help from Sarah, from my interns, from the moderators like you, Julie, and we've got Melinda Sarkis and Boyan Mandarich coming from November Project. And they have been my helpers through all this and figuring out how to use people and use their skills and create an infrastructure internally that has not been without some pretty massive stumbles. But just sort of like figuring it out. And then, we were talking about this. It's just like such a wonderful metaphor for life. We were talking about this whole process, Sarah and I'm just like, man, I can't wait for this time next year when we actually do have a pretty awesome infrastructure in place. I understand how to, organize my teams. I've got a date picked out way ahead of time with a venue that I really like, getting the moderators and the speakers on board earlier because, this isn't just like a proof of concept anymore, but really it's a thing that we're hoping really takes off.
Yeah.
And then I think that sort of, it's like a metaphor for living your day-to-day life is figuring out like, okay, this time next year, I know that my schedule is going to look something like this. I've got all my PowerPoints done for my lectures. I have an eating schedule that works for me. And so I think just really finding that pattern, be it creating a new conference out of thin air, or, getting your life on track with your eating, or getting an exercise regimen, or like a stress modification regimen, is knowing that in the beginning, it's a gigantic mess, but that as you start to figure out who you are and how this thing works for you, it becomes a much more natural process, and also something that you can kind of like rely on in the future, because you've got it not perfect, but at least some sort of, process. I was trying not to use the word process from
Well, which is a lovely little bookend, because strong process
I knew you were going there.
As a term.
Mm-hmm.
We have so much to talk about. There's so many things I didn't get to, but I just want to stay within the confines of the schedule. We could go on and on. But this strong process concept of which where you got the name of the forum. And then also this is something that which I hadn't heard of until I met you, and you said, oh, my I've got this thing called strong process. And I'm going to share this screen because I created a slide.
Yeah, you did.
So of course I did. I created a slide. Let's see if I can go.
I love Sarah.
There it is. And let's get out of the way. I think so. So Doug Davidoff is, I actually had to look him up because I didn't know who he is. He's the founder and CEO of a company called Imagine LLC. And they seem to be, from what I could tell, like sales and business development organization, or business. So this is strong process. This is a quote that Rachel has on her website. An effective process is strong enough to stand up in a complex world, yet flexible enough to allow different styles and personalities to succeed within it. Find the thing that works for you. Mm-hmm. It is said that creating a strong process is probably the most difficult endeavor anyone will be involved in, which is why you need professionals like me. Don't go it alone. It takes time, expertise, and collaboration to work. If the payoff is the ability to consistently and predictably perform, the payoff is the ability to consistently and predictably perform at a high level, which is exactly what you were just saying, Rachel, which is next year at this time, you will have everything already in place, with minor tweaks based upon the learning that you get as a result of actually putting this thing on. Because right now it's all theory. You're learning as you go.
Yeah. And I think this is a quote that I found, I want to say 6-8 years ago, that he wrote, that I actually, trust the process was always something in my brain that it's just, part of who I am. Trust the process. Like, things are going to work out. Put your head down, do the work. Yeah. And I started to sort of think about an idea for a company that I was building at the time, which was more like a fitness consulting company. And I wanted a name for it. And so I was like, well, trust the process is like a little bit too, generic and whatever. And I was like, well, it's just like, I was kind of talking it out, and it kind of came out, well, it's just like a really strong process. It's really what I'm looking for. And my husband was like, well, why don't you just call it that? And I was like, okay. And so I Googled it, and this came up, and I was like, that is exactly what I'm talking about. That is exactly it. And it's apparently a pretty known business term. Mm-hmm. And there are several, this is why I outsource to people that know business. I am not a business person. I did not go to business school. But there are several different ways that you can have internal processes within your company to keep it moving forward, whether it's like a flow of information, or how you, iterate business products or whatever. And there are sort of different models of the processes within companies. And I had never even heard of such a thing. But this one, it was just like, I love that there's a light bulb on the back of it. It was such a light bulb for me, where it was like, yes, this is exactly what I'm talking about. Is it doesn't need to be the same every time, and it doesn't need to be the same for every person, but it does need to be something that you can make work for you. and then iterate on it and sort of like figure out your way, tweak here and there, respond to emergency crises. Like, I will be completely honest. I was, my original date, I was thinking, hey, March 31st seems like an awesome Saturday. Let's do that. And then Sarah gets back to me and she's like, hey, ding dong, that's Easter weekend and like smack dab in the middle of Passover. And I was like, oh my God, I didn't even think about it. Not because I wasn't being sensitive, but because I was just like, this is a date that seems to work really well. And so then it's like, you gotta, think on your feet real fast and, change dates around. And, I think, and you got to just know that those things are going to happen. And even for somebody like me, that's a total control freak and that induced a massive anxiety attack. You just got to sit back a second and be like, this is going to work out. You just have to, be patient and figure it out and be okay with the fact that it's not going to be super straight and narrow, because that's just not how things work.
Yeah, that is not how things work.
Yeah.
So thank you so much, Rachel, for sharing your insights and how it is for the Strong Process and the way that your attitudes about food and exercise and just living in the world are incredibly refreshing in this world of,
Thank you.
Prescriptions and restrictions and all those sorts of things. So it's been great hanging out with you. And I know, Julie, what's that?
I'm going to steal that. In the world of prescriptions and restrictions.
There you go. I'm just
writing my copy for me right now.
And so it's been great chatting with you on that. And just once again, so this is Strong Process. You can find strongprocess.com and Strong Process in all of the social media channels. Well, those that matter, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, those that matter for the Strong Process Forum, that is. And for ideas to done, just as a reminder, this is Sarah Hawkins, and my business is True North Business Management. I have these ideas to done conversations about getting things done in business and in life, as if there really are two different things. Actually, life is business and business is life. And so next week I'll be not next week. The next program is on Friday, December 29th, always at noon Eastern. And I will be doing a recap of all the things that we've learned to date from my guests. We have had delegation conversations. We've had social media fasts, or sabbaticals, I should say. And so there's lots of things to cover. And if you'd like to register for that or any of the future webinars, you can go to my website, True North Business Management /events, and you can also check out the archive of these recordings. So hope to see you on a future Ideas to Done show, and thank you once again, Rachel. Looking forward to continuing our work together on Strong Process.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Sarah.
All right, bye-bye. Let me turn off this. There we are.